There are over 500 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. So to come across something that is truly original is a rare sight. This is a video Casey uploaded on March 25th, 2015. Little does he know, but after he posted this, he'd become one of the most popular creators on YouTube over the next couple of years.
I've decided, starting today, my 34th birthday, I'm going to make a movie every day. For a while, anyways. Or until I get bored.
His career was about to explode. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because this is far from what Casey's life had always looked like. You'll soon learn that there was much more to the person behind the camera, and what led to his determined success on the platform. But for that, let's rewind a little bit, all the way to the beginning. This is the story of Casey Neistat. Born in 1981, Casey grew up with three older siblings: his brother Dean, his older brother Van, and his sister Jordan. Living in a lower middle-class part of Connecticut, Casey describes himself as always being in trouble as a kid. And it only got worse as he became a teenager. In his sophomore year of high school, his parents got divorced. Casey recalls putting most of the blame on his mom, which led to them having a huge fight one night. And Casey, being 15 at the time, decided to leave. On a Tuesday at 9 p.m., he left home. He stayed with some friends for a little bit before moving in with two girls that were slightly older than him. Eventually, one of them became his girlfriend, and the both of them moved to Virginia, where they stayed with his brother Van for 3 months. Casey's girlfriend ended up getting pregnant during this time, so they decided to move back to Connecticut, where he then dropped out of high school. They lived in her friend's basement for a while, and Casey worked at a seafood restaurant washing dishes for $8 an hour. So, it wasn't great, but just after Casey's 17th birthday, his son Owen was born in April. However, they were really poor. They all moved into a trailer park, and were even on welfare for a little while. Once Owen was around a year and a half old, they visited New York City and stayed in his brother Van's apartment in Brooklyn. His brother had just gotten an iMac, but obviously, this wasn't the model we're familiar with today. It was the oddly shaped blue one that was released in 1998, the very first iMac you could edit video on. So, they shot this little movie of taking Owen to the zoo. Casey fell in love with this. For the first time in his life, Casey felt he'd finally found his voice through telling these stories. He'd spend all his free time filming these little videos of Owen. But after that, something unfortunate happened. In his own words, for a lot of good reasons, his girlfriend broke up with him. However, there was a bright side to this. Before the breakup, he always had this dream of moving to New York City in 5 years. But given the circumstances now, he just kind of said, why not? It was June 2001, and Casey was 20 years old when he moved to NYC to become a filmmaker. This was his dream, and regardless of being right where he needed to be, Casey describes this as one of the hardest times in his life. He didn't know anyone, he didn't have a plan, and he didn't get to see his kid every day. Owen stayed in Connecticut with his mom, and Casey would go back to visit 3 days a week. That first summer in New York, he worked as a bike messenger until eventually he was hired by an artist named Tom Sachs, where he worked a manual labor job for $10 an hour. Every week, he put aside $100 for travel costs so he could see Owen. After the summer, when his 3-month sublet was up, he moved onto a friend's couch in downtown Manhattan, where he could stay for a month. Casey moved in on September 2nd, 2001.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center.
Apparently, a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
I've never seen anything like it. It literally blew itself into World Trade Center.
Away very, very quickly. There are more explosions. It
Thanks
has
very much,
completely
Dan.
collapsed.
The whole site has
The
collapsed?
whole building has collapsed.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center.
The blast from the first plane knocked him out of bed. By the time the second blast hit, he was on his bike, trying to get away. His dad called him later that morning and told him it's time to come home. It's time to come back to Connecticut. And Casey really thought about it. He could barely afford to eat. He didn't have any place to stay or any education. But in his mind, he thought, could it really get any harder than this? If he could figure out how to push through this part of his life, then Casey knew he'd be all right. He committed everything to becoming a filmmaker. And this is exactly when things started to turn around. After the incident, a friend of a friend moved out of New York City, and Casey took over his incredibly cheap apartment. Shortly after, him and his brother Van started making movies together, and they worked for anyone that would hire them. If it involved picking up a camera, they were interested. They literally said yes to everything. But the first video to get them any recognition was one they made together. This was iPod's Dirty Secret. A video Casey made out of frustration to expose the iPod's faulty battery and even more flawed refund policy. Back in 2003, before most social media was even a thing, and the opportunity of exposure being insignificant compared to now, their video was viewed 6 million times in the first month of its online release. This was a pivotal moment in Casey's career. All of a sudden, more and more people started asking about what other movies the Neistat Brothers had made. Things were starting to look up. Casey had a little bit of money, and he was able to start taking trips with Owen, just the two of them.
What's the pretzel for?
The dolphin.
You're gonna feed the pretzel to the dolphin, yeah?
A few years later in 2006, they met a guy named Tom Scott, who ran a group of local TV channels. Tom offered to fund them for a year to document and tell stories from their lives. The result that came out of it was 8 25-minute episodes. This was them making their very own TV series, and it would lead to their first big break. In 2008, they sold that 8-episode TV show to HBO for just under $2 million. The show would then premiere in 2010. This was the Neistat Brothers. It was like a YouTube vlog series, but 5 years before anyone was familiar with what that was. Regardless of how engaging the show actually turned out to be, it just wasn't very routine with everything else HBO was doing, so they didn't end up getting renewed for a second season. After this, Van moved to LA to work on his art career, while Casey stayed in New York and continued to pursue filmmaking. It was no longer the two of them. But as the cliche saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. On February 15th, 2010, the Casey Neistat channel was created. He had quickly shifted his entire focus to YouTube, and his first viral video was posted a year later. This was Bike Lanes by Casey Neistat.
I'm getting a ticket for riding my bike not in the bike lane. Can't believe you're busting my balls. I'm doing the world a favor riding my bike. It's pouring rain out here. So I got a ticket for not riding in the bike lane, but often there are obstructions that keep you from properly riding in the bike lane.
Casey soon realized there was a formula to making one of his movies blow up on YouTube. It became just about trying to replicate it as much as possible after this point, and over the next couple of years, he'd slowly figure it out. At the start of 2012, he was sitting at around 8,000 subscribers and 6 million total views on his channel. But as he continued to try and solve the secret that was making something viral, he grew exponentially. By the end of the year, he had surpassed 25 million total views and 55,000 subscribers. This came from the help of another thriving video, Make It Count. Not only was he catching his stride, but his videos massively improved. His editing and storytelling had not only gotten better, but it was different. It was so offbeat from anything else on YouTube at the time. Casey was always trying to tell a story with each project. Just the diversity of his channel alone would continue to bring in more eyes. There was clearly an interest in what he was doing. In 2013, he'd go from 55,000 subscribers to over 20,000. In 2014, he'd more than double his growth, from 200K to 460K. People absolutely loved his videos, but the only thing was, they wanted more. His audience wanted him to upload every day. But back then, he only posted a few times a month, and after watching his videos, it's easy to understand why. They clearly took a lot of time and effort to make, but Casey only saw this as an opportunity. With the amount of growth his channel experienced over the last few years, he knew there was just too much potential to pass this up. So on March 26, 2015, he uploaded his first daily vlog.
So this is the first vlog entry, but let me start this morning.
This would end up being one of the best decisions he'd ever make. Casey's videos would go from averaging 100,000 to 200,000 views per video to over 500,000. And because he was doing it every day, it immediately reflected in his sub count. In the beginning of 2015, he was sitting just around 500K subscribers, but by the end of it, he had passed 1.7 million without missing a single day. A 282 upload streak with zero outside help. But this was by choice. Casey wanted to do all this himself. The question was, how long could he keep this up? Posting every day was already impressive enough on YouTube, but the quality he was doing it at, there was no way it could be sustainable, especially with everything Casey had going on in his life. Just in the last few years, he had a kid, he started a new business, and not to mention, he had gotten married. This is Casey's wife, Candace. Their relationship was 8 years in the making. It was their very first date, and a little under a month later, they got married. Until her parents made them get it annulled, which was probably for the best. Over the next decade, there would be plenty of highs and lows for them. Although with everything they've been through, they eventually made it work. In 2013, on December 30th, they got married, but for real this time. Nonetheless, this still didn't answer our question. With how long the videos took to make, how much Casey was traveling, and on top of that, he was having a family. How long could he realistically do this?
On a scale of 1 to best ever, how was lunch? How was lunch?
We'll come back to this a little later, but for now, he was all in on YouTube. Casey had witnessed the success that came from uploading every single day in 2015, and there's no way he could stop just yet. But to keep up this schedule, he needed an everyday routine to stick to. Here's what his day-to-day looked like. Wake up at 6 a.m. Doing this gives him a few of the most productive hours in the day. He finishes the edit on his vlog that he started the night before and uploads to YouTube at 8 a.m. on the dot. He kept this up for so long that the second it was 8:01, tweets would start rolling in. After this, he goes for his run of roughly 10 miles. Yep, Casey would run on average of 70 to 80 miles per week. To most people, this sounds horrible, but to him, he needed it. Because during this hour or so run, he was planning in his head the vlog he'd film for the day.
I love the physicality, I love the competitiveness of it, but my favorite part is having a piece of the day every day set aside, no distractions. Running is much more of a cerebral experience for me than it is a physical one.
By the time he was back, it's around 10 a.m. after he showered, and it's off to work. From this point until about 7 p.m., it was just work. Working on his new business, and in the free minute he had, he'd film the vlog. From 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., he was back home, and it was family time. That is, until the baby fell asleep. Casey would then start the edit for the video he'd upload at 8 a.m. the next day. This would last from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., until he inevitably falls asleep, and does it all again tomorrow. It's no secret that it takes an impressive work ethic to keep this schedule up for an extended amount of time, but this was Casey's perspective on it.
Well, in short, I'm here, all of my dreams and aspirations are here, and the only thing in between these two is a bunch of work. So tackling that work is a way of moving this needle. That's all the motivation I need. I love progress in any manifestation. Yeah, motivation's never...
And because he remained just as dedicated in 2016, it would become his best year yet. Something to take away from Casey's videos that was vital to his success was how he could make literally anything entertaining. Because of his unique editing style, the presentation was always interesting. Whether he was snowboarding through the streets of New York City or just talking about his favorite camera lens to use, the video was never boring. They felt like the golden era for vlogging on YouTube. Because of Casey, it seemed like everyone wanted to pick up a camera and start filming their daily life. He was one of the few creators that really popularized the idea of doing this every single day. It was also clear that Casey was doing exactly what he wanted to do. His carefree, spontaneous lifestyle was not only inspirational to see, but it was motivating. Casey knew what it took to be successful, and he had a lot of respect for the opportunity in front of him. Only 6 months into the year, and his channel had grown to 3.5 million subscribers. He'd also uploaded over 460 videos in a row, still without missing a day. And in the second half of 2016, Casey would continue this streak. However, there was a problem developing beneath the surface. It seemed like ever since they started dating, Candace was in a lot of the videos. Even 10 years ago, when they were temporarily broken up, she modeled in a video for Casey. But as the daily vlog became a thing, even his fans started to notice. A consistent comment always popped up. Why doesn't Candace ever smile? And then it happened. On November 19th, he ended the vlog.
You know, I used to avoid fights with her, avoid arguments with her. I very deliberately used to quell any disagreements we'd have because I needed her for content.
Yeah.
And
then
looking
your
back at
whole
that,
life,
what a crazy thing that is. And I could feel the burden I was putting on her. I was aware of it at the time, but only in retrospect do I look back and it's like, wow, the destructiveness of that on my own marriage and relationship was profound. And I talked to my wife about it now, and she says, with no equivocation, she's like, you have no idea how close to divorce we were. Because it was like when I wasn't superficially being nice to get her to behave, to be in my videos, I was working. I was just working.
That was the truth. The amount of time Casey spent working and filming just wasn't healthy for their relationship. But creating these videos had become an addiction, and by this time, he had truly figured out the game that was YouTube. In just the month of September alone, he accumulated over 155 million views and 1.1 million subscribers. This was success that he could have never imagined when he started. Even though he had officially quit the daily vlog, over the course of the next few years, he'd periodically bring it back. At the end of 2016, his channel had grown to 6 million subscribers, and by the end of 2017, he had surpassed 8.5 million. It was clear that completely walking away from the everyday grind that is YouTube was easier said than done. But what about his business? The company Casey and his business partner Matt Hackett started back in 2015. This was Beme.
This is what sharing on Beme looks like. There's no staring at the phone. You just hold it to your chest and it records, and then it's posted.
And in November, after Casey ended the vlog, they sold their tech company to CNN for $25 million. Beme itself was a social media app, and it wasn't really a bad idea at its core, but during this time, Snapchat was simply doing it better. The vlog itself gave Beme a huge boost at launch, but it never really achieved the longevity it needed. So a lot of people were curious, why would CNN buy a failing app? Along with the technology, they were also interested in Casey and what he was able to build with his channel, knowing that whatever they were making now would have some immediate exposure because of his videos. But let's fast forward a little bit. What would end up becoming with Beme? Their biggest project at the time being their own news show on YouTube. Gaining over 300,000 subscribers, 33 million views, and 180 videos uploaded. It wasn't bad at all. But whether this was the vision CNN had, or it wasn't living up to the potential they wanted, either way, in early 2018, they shut it down. Casey and his business partner Matt would move on from the company they started 3 years ago. Meanwhile, the tech side of Beme lived on in CNN. It wouldn't be until a few months later when Casey would shed more light on what happened.
Looking back at my time there, I think that we did a lot of interesting things. I think that, maybe I struggled more in that environment than I had anticipated, but ultimately, I'm very proud of the work that we did there, and I'm very happy that work is going to continue on.
Beme as a company may not have panned out the exact way he wanted, but he was ready to move on to bigger things. Casey continued to upload throughout the rest of 2018, documenting his life and his new business ventures. But towards the end, he reached another goal of his. Not only had he hit 10 million subscribers, a milestone most channels could only dream of, but just a few months later, him and Candace had added one to the family.
She was born 1 week ago today. Today is her 1 week birthday. And she's healthy and happy. Everything's perfect. Candace is doing great.
I think this gave a lot of perspective to his life, because this was the last time he'd stop posting daily. Now, there was a new focus. Along with this, Casey also realized that they needed to move out of New York City. So this was it, the last episode in the show. After spending nearly half his life in this city, it was time to leave. It was time to say goodbye to the place where he'd turn his hobby into a career, and the place where he'd meet his future wife. Casey was about to close this chapter. However, there is a question that is still asked. How long did Casey really upload for? Even though there were a few breaks in between, Across the span of 3 years, he uploaded more than 800 episodes of the vlog. As a creator, he's amassed over 3 billion views and 12 million subscribers at this point. But this doesn't mean he's done with YouTube. To be honest, I don't think he'll ever stop making videos.
Okay, let me go ahead and turn this off.